who are we really? When we're young, the world gives us images to live up to, of strength, of success, of what it means to be an adult, a protector, a leader. We inherit codes and expectations, roles that aren't ours, but feel impossible to refuse. And in chasing them, we often forget to ask, what do I actually want? Yakuza 0 is a game about gangsters, real estate, cabaret clubs, and karaoke. Much more! But beneath all of that, it's a story about becoming yourself, not in theory, nor in a perfect world, but in the middle of a chaotic one with everything trying to push you in the wrong direction. It's the story of two young men caught in a moment of opportunity and upheaval, yet they feel completely trapped. They're barraged with conflicting philosophies and tempting exits, and at every turn, they have to ask, what am I loyal to and who am I becoming? These two don't just survive the criminal underworld of the Yakuza, they choose who they are in spite of it. And in doing that, they remind us what real strength actually looks like. The world doesn't wait for you. It doesn't care if you're young or lost or just trying to do what you think is right. It has its own rhythm and is brutal, fast, and transactional. If you don't move with it, it'll run you over. Kiryu and Majima both enter this world believing that they can survive by doing what's expected of them. Kiryu is framed for the murder of a debt collection target and caught in the middle of the Dojima lieutenant's power struggle, and at first, Kuze seems to be the one responsible. Kiryu, ever loyal and careful, tries to navigate that chaos by following the rules shaped by his image of Kazuma, the father figure that he idealizes. But to Kuze, that's something that makes him weak and an upstart pretending to be a real Yakuza when he's really not. Majima is in the opposite situation, trapped in a gilded cage. He works tirelessly under Sagawa, smiling on command, playing the role, trying to earn his way back into the Yakuza to ultimately secure a future for his sworn brother that he feels that he's failed. He's told that if he keeps grinding, he'll finally earn his place back in the Yakuza. But that place is a lie. He's not being tested, but used. Early on, they each face men who seem essential to their future. Kuze, the old-school Yakuza captain, who's violent and relentless, but honest about what he believes makes a real Yakuza. And Kiryu sees him as a corrupted thug, nothing like Kazuma's version of honor. Sagawa, by contrast, is hollow and efficient. He gets things done by stopping at nothing to achieve his goals within the Yakuza, and Majima tries to work with him until he realizes there are lines even duty can't justify crossing. Kuze and Sagawa embody the Yakuza underworld as it really is, brutal, manipulative, and deeply competitive. And at first, neither Kiryu nor Majima knows how to live outside of it. That's the first truth of growing up. No one is coming to tell you who you are. If you want a life that's yours, you have to fight for it. When we think of Kiryu, we think of a righteous and stoic hero. But in the beginning of his story in Yakuza 0, Kiryu doesn't act out of thoughtful righteousness. He acts out of emotion. He leaves the Yakuza after being framed not because it's strategic, but because the idea of tarnishing Kazuma's name is unbearable to him. It's instinct and emotion, nothing to do with logic or thought-through actions. His strength is not yet rooted in principle, but in feeling, the things that he cares about and clings to, and the things that he hates and resists. And for a while, that's enough for him. Even his friendship with Nishikiyama reflects this. Nishiki is fiery, reactive, and emotional, but in those early days, they're in the same headspace, trying to do what they feel is the right thing, without really knowing what that right thing is. When Kiryu confronts Awano, he doesn't claim to be righteous, he just says, I do what I love or what I hate. That's his moral compass. That's how he navigates the chaos around him. Even his suit says something. It's bold, white, and unapologetic. Chosen with Nishiki's help, it reflects the way Kiryu wants to be seen by others, as someone pure, certain, clean, someone who doesn't flinch in the face of corruption. But purity is not clarity, and emotional instinct, no matter how strong, cannot carry you forever. Eventually, Kiryu will have to answer a harder question. How do you react when your idols are proven to be darker than you initially thought? And what do you stand for when the things that you love are taken from you? Majima doesn't begin his story with the same fire as Kiryu. He begins quietly, determined to endure whatever he has to in order to join the Yakuza. He's trapped, watched, and tested. Everything he does because he's told to. Every smile he wears to get back into the Yakuza. He's obedient, not because he believes in the system, but because he believes he has to suffer to get where he needs to go. He failed his sworn brother, and somewhere deep down he believes that pain he's suffering is deserved. That guilt becomes his sole purpose, just endless work for a future that keeps slipping away, hoping that if he suffers long enough, he'll earn the right to live again. Then he's finally given a chance to rejoin the Yakuza by being given a job to kill Makoto Makimura, a girl that he discovers isn't a justified target, but a victim that's been abused, discarded, and is left powerless. And for the first time, Majima disobeys, out of pure compassion for somebody who has suffered needlessly at the hands of the criminal underworld. Makoto isn't just a job to Majima, or a way to secure his future, she's just someone that he truly sees. And that's what makes it so important to him. Because for a man who's been used, broken, and shaped into something useful, seeing someone else as human is the first step to remembering who he is too. But the world does not make it easy for him. Majima comes face to face with men who live true to themselves, in contrast to his mask as the Lord of the Night. Wenhai Lee is deeply passionate about helping Makoto, but he's willing to kill and do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. And Nishitani enjoys everything he does, but really believes in nothing. Majima watches them both and realizes too much emotion can leave you burnt. And action without feeling leaves you completely cold, just like Sago. Majima begins to discover himself through Makoto, but when Shimano reveals that even this act of compassion was anticipated and used, it undoes him. He thought he was becoming a person again, but he realizes that, once again, he's just a pawn. Eventually, the world pushes both of them to the edge. For Kiryu, it's Shibusawa, the man who orchestrated everything in the plot, who shattered Kiryu's ideal view of the Yakuza and the image of Kazuma that he once clung to. And in that final fight, Kiryu doesn't struggle with defeat. In fact, he completely dominates Shibusawa. What he fights is that rage he's feeling, the temptation to let that feeling of frustration with his world crashing down turn him into something else. For Majima, it's Lao Gui that pushes him over the edge, the assassin who shot Makoto, a dark reflection of that kind of ruthless killer that Majima could have become if he'd simply followed orders from the start. And for a moment, he's ready to kill and to make that pain mean something. These are the moments where the story could have ended up like so many others, with revenge, with violence, or with the cycle of the criminal underworld continuing. But they don't. Kiryu avoids crossing the line, not just because of discipline, but because of his bond with Nishiki, who steps in and pulls him back. And in that moment, Kiryu remembers, he's not doing this for honor, not for Kazuma, not for love or hate. He's doing it because he believes that there's a right way to live, one that shows the power and righteousness that he'll carry on as the Dragon of Dojima. And Majima is able to stop himself too. Although he fully intended to at the start, he stops just before killing Lao Gui and Dojima, because in that moment he understands that Makoto doesn't need the darkness of his vengeance shaping her future. She needs to be free from all of it, and the only way to give her that freedom is to disappear from her life. These are the moments when Kiryu and Majima solidify who they really are. Kiryu doesn't just wear white anymore, he chooses gray, something that's in between the self-righteousness of white and the darkness of black. Not because he's given up, but because he's finally accepted that the world and his idols aren't as clean as he once believed. And yet, he'll stand for something in it anyway. Majima doesn't end up smiling for the sake of others anymore. He smiles as the mad dog of Shimano because he now knows who he is, because the mask that he's wearing is his, and so is the will behind that. Kiryu and Majima both walked into this world believing that they had to become something for someone else, a perfect Yakuza, a redeemed brother, an obedient pawn, or a righteous man. But by the end, they don't live by anyone's code but their own. They've been used, abandoned, tested, broken, and still they choose to protect, to forgive, and to walk away. Not because they were told to, not because it was expected of them, but because it was the right thing. Yakuza 0 isn't just a coming-of-age story. It's a story about asserting who you really are, when the world has already decided what you're supposed to be. When you're young, the world doesn't ask you who you are, it hands you a sort of script and tells you what strength looks like and what success should be, and what roles you need to fill. You inherit rules, expectations, and burdens, and most of the time, you try to live up to them because it feels like you don't have much of a choice. That's what makes Yakuza 0 such a powerful game to play. It doesn't just tell you to follow your dreams in a vacuum. It shows what it's like to feel trapped by someone else's dreams and expectations, and to fight your way free. Kiryu and Majima don't become heroes by rising above everything. They become who they are by choosing what matters, in spite of the fear, betrayal, and the pressure. They don't always have clarity, and they don't always have a plan, but they learn something rare, that real agency isn't about control. It's about responsibility, and it's about deciding how you want to live when no one else will make that choice for you. For young people today who are bombarded with comparisons, expectations, and temptations, this story lands like a punch to the chest. It says, you might have expectations you place on yourself, you might be forced to live up to a role that you find difficult to tolerate, or you might just not know who you are yet, but you always have the right to decide who you are. And that decision, that quiet act of choosing, is one of the most meaningful and powerful things that a young person can do.